Breaking news, I've been keeping a secret, just like Brigitte Macron's pants.
Unbelievable surprise. That actually would be the least surprising thing ever. But that is not the case. It's actually much crazier. And like I said, I've been holding on to this for a very long time because something happened all the way back in February. And I was sworn to secrecy temporarily. And I feel that today is the correct day to inform audiences because it may have some severe global implications. So here is what happened. All right. The date was Monday, February 24th. And in the early evening, I had just kind of wrapped the show. It was just after 5:30 p.m., to be precise. I received a very strange message from a friend of mine. I'm not going to identify that friend, but the message specifically read, "Hey, I have something to tell you from the White House. They asked me to call you. I'm just the messenger here." Again, strange. I'm just the messenger here, like kind of removing themselves from whatever was going to be said. So I assume it's got to be something weird. And I say, yeah, whatever, give me a call. And so he does call me pretty immediately, by the way. And he says, somebody very high up at the White House has asked me to ask you if, as a favor, you could stop speaking about Brigitte Macron.
Now,
Like, what?
yeah. So, of course, she's done the whole Becoming Brigitte documentary series, which has been unbelievable. My wife and I have watched it. When I was on Tucker Carlson's show, I talked about it with him, how Candace Owens really led the charge on this unbelievable story about how, like, regardless of whether or not Brigitte is a woman or a man, clearly Brigitte is a man, but even if that wasn't part of it, the grooming part of it, the grooming part of the story, like grooming Emmanuel Macron when he was a young boy, young teenage boy, grooming him is the creepiest. I mean, that's not even the creepiest part. You got to watch the whole thing. But so she went incredibly deep on this story. First party sources, incredible reporting on this. So of course, Emmanuel Macron would be pissed about it. But that's the backstory.
Excuse me? I'm not kidding when I say that in the myriad of possibilities that were floating through my brain about what this phone call was going to be about, that was not one of them.
Yeah.
So I'm just kind of having to redirect, and I'm going, oh, what are you talking about?
But see, you have to understand something about, like, this is the stuff that politicians pay attention. Like, this is the stuff that's whispered in the halls. Like, these are the things they're talking about. So, of course, of like all of the things you're reporting on, whether it's the big, beautiful bill or the war in Iran or any of that, the stuff that they're most concerned about hits them right in their, the whole facade, right? Their whole phony facade for many, many decades that Brigitte is somehow a woman. Like, you're hitting them right where it hurts, Candace.
To be clear, we had, ironically, as a podcast, we had just ended our Brigitte Macron series 4 days earlier on February 20th. That's when we released the last episode, which was the epilogue. So I'm going, that doesn't make sense. Why am I getting this phone call now? And obviously, I ask for a little more information. I say, who specifically called you? And that friend of mine says, it's somebody that has the president's ear. This is somebody important. So I'm thinking, okay, this is advisor, Susie Wiles, I don't know. And I tell my friend, go back to that person and just say, I said no. It's free speech. This is obviously an important story to me. The implications here are pretty severe about what I've uncovered. So no deal. Hang up. I go into my husband's office and I tell him what just happened. And honestly, I'm kind of laughing at the absurdity of it because I hadn't thought beyond what may have happened. And then I do what I always do just in case. I call Noah, I call the lawyer, and I'm like, hey, I know Macron's, sending us legal letters. Just want you to add this onto the pile that somebody at the White House is asking me to just stop speaking about Brigitte Macron. Cool. We kind of have a laugh about it, run it different ways. Are we going to expect something else to be delivered to my door? Another threat, implicit threat from the Macrons, somebody calling in a favor, who knows, whatever. Anyways, we do dinner. And I am kind of feeling bad about my pregnant attitude on the phone call, because I was, 8 weeks away from birth. And I was a bit shorter on the phone than I would have been.
Pregnant attitude. I have 3 kids. I know what that pregnant attitude is like. You get a pass. You get a pass.
If there wasn't like a growing infant foot that's lodged under my lung. And this person has been very good to me in the past. And so I resolve that before I go to bed, I'll phone him back and have a much more calm conversation. Not that I was rude, but just like, hey, what's this actually about? And so I did. And not only that, before I called this individual back, when I checked online, I realized that Emmanuel Macron is in Washington, D.C., February 24th. He is in Washington, D.C.
No. Oh,
and
no.
he had departed the White House just hours before I received the call.
Oh, no.
So anyways, I am in awe. A lot of thoughts are running through my mind.
Yeah.
What could this possibly be about? And when I call that person back, they tell me something that is even stranger.
You know what's crazy is, like, this would fly in other countries, right? This would fly in the UK, censorship, with the, when 10 Downing Street calls you to tell you to stop doing something. I mean, they're all in lockstep. The media is all in cahoots, right? They have censorship laws. They'd arrest you or they'd do something else, but not in the United States. They do not like our freedom of the press. And so the French president thinks that, like, well, in our country, this would work. We would just silence a journalist like that. So sure, you can do something about it, right?
They say, look, I again am the messenger here. What I was told from somebody that's pretty high up at the White House is that Emmanuel Macron is holding up negotiations to end the Russian and Ukrainian war. Unless you stop speaking about his wife. And I'm just going, what?
What, you're going to blackmail? You're going to blackmail the president of the United States. He's holding up negotiations so people don't die. Let's be clear about that, right? You're holding up negotiations so people don't die. I'm sorry, you're holding up negotiations and more people will die. I guess is the right way to say it. So more people are going to die because of your vanity, because of your husband, Brigitte Macron, has a penis. Like, you're going to allow more young Ukrainians to die. You're going to allow your country to go further and further into debt because your husband has a penis.
What are you saying? What are we even speaking about? What do you mean negotiations between Russia and Ukraine? I'm just like, looking into a story at my house. I've got a very small team here, and you're telling me that somehow negotiations are being held up and it needs to be communicated to me that I got to stop talking about Brigitte? What are we saying? And then I'm asking myself in my mind, because I hang up this phone and I am in true shock. Did Emmanuel Macron pretend to fly into D.C. under the guise of negotiations, the Russia and Ukraine war, and then instruct someone on his entourage to have an off-the-books discussion, a little meeting on the side, maybe somebody, again, like a Susie Wiles, where he made his truer demands? Like, hey, this is for the pictures. Me and Trump are talking about you. We're going to get it done. And then what really goes on behind the scenes is like, we're not doing anything until that little podcaster, Candace, agrees to shut her mouth. What? This is crazy. This is absolutely insane.
Right. So we'll just allow another generation of young Ukrainian men to die. I don't know if you've seen the numbers over the past few days in Ukraine. I mean, it's unbelievable. It's atrocious. And by the way, this was February that she's talking about. So since February, how many more people have died as a result? Or even in the days after? Hundreds because of your vanity?
Okay. So I say, we ended the conversation. I say, I'm going to sleep on this. It's a lot to process. I remember I get into bed and I just turn to my husband and I say, no one will ever believe us. Just something that just arrived at me very suddenly. I said, no one will ever believe that this just took place. And my husband's like, yeah, no, this is just very, very strange. And I promised the individual that I would pray on it, that I would think further about the situation. What are the implications here? And I then call him back the next day and I say, look, this is pretty weird. You have to admit this is pretty weird. And you're not really giving me any details. And I kind of want to know who specifically you spoke to, because I think it kind of matters. Is somebody trying to do a side deal while Trump is doing a different deal? And at that moment, he's honest and he says, no, President Trump was on the phone too. And I go, oh, are you kidding me? You didn't tell me this yesterday? That there was some sort of a conference call and President Trump is on the line and you didn't mention it? I go, did you lie to me yesterday? Were you trying to pretend that it was like a third party person? And he says, no, I didn't lie to you. I didn't lie to you. Like, I got a phone call and I obviously in the background, Trump communicated something to me. So he was there when the phone call took place. And I'm going, what the heck is going on? Literally, what is happening right now? So I got the phone with him and I just say, I just need time to process what you're saying. This is so absurd. How could this become an issue that is involving the President of the United States? I'm doing a series on my podcast. And then I just kind of get into mommy mode because it's Tuesday. My daughter's got ballet. I'm at ballet with my daughter. And I get a text message from that person that says, you need to pick up the phone. Somebody from the White House is calling you. And I say, okay, it happened so quickly.
Can you imagine that this is what the White House is focused on? Like placating Emmanuel Macron? Like this is what they're focused on? By the way, I've often certainly wanted to know, like when J.D. Vance flew to France and he was there and he got to meet Brigitte Macron face to face. Like one of the first questions I'd ever ask J.D. in an interview would be, could you tell that Brigitte was a man? Wonder how the rest of the interview would go.
I pick up the phone and sure enough, it is somebody at the White House that is calling me. It's not Donald Trump, but it's somebody at the White House that is calling me. That's pretty high up, close proximity to Trump. I'm not going to name. And this person just, I assume, has never even watched 1 minute of my content because, I mean, if there were a guide to how not to approach Candace Owens when you are trying to get something done, he was just following this guide. He could not have been more pompous and more arrogant on the phone. And I would like to contextualize that I'm like pretty heavily pregnant. So like, you know, my bandwidth for BS or anybody trying to like, well, you know, it was very low. And he essentially says, look, you should do it because it's the president and he's asking you to do it. What else do you want me to say? Just do it. Just stop talking about Brigitte Macron. It's astounding. Reflecting on that level of arrogance because he told you to do it. It's an order, so you should do it. And all I was thinking in my mind before I flew into, a little rage.
My brain is going through like, who could speak that way to someone? You know, it's like, who do you guys think that was? That phone call? Because like my brain is kind of going like, well, maybe like it sounds like a Stephen Miller kind of a move. That's kind of what it sounds like to me, but I don't know. You know, that's just what it sounds like. But
was that expression, proximity to power can lead others to diluting that they wield it. You're close to power. You think you're now Trump. You're calling me, even if you were Trump, this wouldn't be the way to speak to me. And you're calling me like that's an order from the president of the United States. So you just do it. No questions asked. Don't even think about freedom of speech. Who cares about that pesky little First Amendment? You got to just do it now. And I just basically say, look, my daughter's crying because she doesn't like when I step out of ballet, even though she can see me. She's, please, mommy, come back in. You're speaking to me inappropriately. Oh. And I just say, I don't really care I don't know who you think you're speaking to. This is not how you're going to get anything done with me. And I just hang up the phone. I'm like, this is just not a good conversation. I don't want to be part of this anymore. Goodbye. I don't like that at all.
Way to go.
And the third party person who had initially told about the situation is trying to calm down. And he calls behind. He's like, no, I don't know why you're spoken to like that. And like, this is still really important. And this really matters to the president. And he's kind of trying to talk me off the pregnancy cliff. And I'm still calm enough that I know that pregnant Candace is not always the most rational Candace and a little bit of a hothead. And I resolve as I'm speaking to this situation with my husband that I should also reach out and maybe call someone who's potentially been in a predicament like this. I don't know, someone who's got a larger audience than me and kind of call in a favor because I don't normally text him, but I did reach out to Tucker Carlson.
I was going to say,